Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webinar, Positioning for Prosperity, Insurance Essentials for Social Equity Awardees. I'm honored to be your host for this session, part of NCIA's Industry Essentials webinar series, our premier digital educational platform to provide you timely, engaging, and essential education precisely when you need it most. And today, in collaboration with NCIA's Risk Management and Insurance Committee, our Committee Insights series brings you an in-depth exploration of the insurance needs of social equity awardees across the cannabis industry. From addressing the disadvantages and advantages of being awarded a social equity license, to understanding unique coverage requirements and examining real-life examples of setbacks and successes, our goal is clear: to equip you with indispensable insights to secure your business's future. Join us as we explore critical considerations every social equity awardee in the cannabis industry must be aware of regarding their insurance needs, and together we'll discover how to position your business as a prime player in the rapidly revolving landscape. So thank you all once again for joining us today. Let's dive in. To kick things off, I'd like to welcome our new chair of NCIA's Risk Management and Insurance Committee and longtime contributor to our Committee Insights series, Simone Casson. Welcome back to our Industry Essentials webinar series. Great to have you here as always, Simone. You can take it away from here.
All right, awesome. Can you see me?
Yes, crystal clear.
Okay, cool. All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Brian, for having me. I'm so excited about doing this webinar. So we planned this webinar last year, and this was something that was near and dear to my heart, to really talk about some of those advantages, disadvantages for social equity awardees, but some additional insurance requirements that they may need to have, and just understanding risk management, which I don't think that we give a whole lot of attention to. So we're going to get started. I know a lot of states have taken on different programs for social equity awardees. One of the things that are oftentimes a requirement is obtaining insurance. And so we really want to go in and talk about what that checklist is going to be, how to prosper, how to be able to cover your business, and so much more. So I'm so excited. One of the things that I'm able to be really excited about outside of the topic is the wonderful experts that have decided to join us. So I definitely want to introduce our first guest, and then we're going to do a round robin, and I'm going to let them tell you who they are, what they do, and what company they represent. And then we're going to get started in this exciting webinar that I just think is going to be amazing. Does that sound cool? All right. Let's just go with it. So, Miss Angela, you are up first. Can you go ahead and tell the people who you are? And then we will do round robin for everybody, and they can just take it from there.
Hey, my name is Angela White, and I am coming to you from San Francisco. I work for an organization called Success Centers, and I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Next.
Hey everybody, my name is Antoine Mordican. I'm coming from I'm on the call from the great state of Alabama. I'm the CEO and owner of Native Black Cultivation, which we are one of the first Black owned and operated licensed medical cannabis cultivators here in the state.
Awesome. And next would be Nichelle.
Hey there, everybody. It's Nichelle Santos, founder and CEO of CANNRA Coverage Insurance Services. We provide risk management, compliance, and insurance. I'm calling in from New Jersey, but we're writing business coast to coast.
All right. And then next we are going to have Matt.
Hey guys, Matt Johnson here with Assured Partners. I've spent about half a dozen years working on cannabis insurance on the carrier side, and have finally started and joined some wonderful ladies here as an insurance broker of the group called Assured Partners. Excited to be here.
Awesome sauce. Awesome. So everyone, I want you guys to assure you, everyone on this actual webinar, the panelists today are definitely great in their own perspectives, right? And so we're going to give some great advice, and I think that you guys will be able to take away quite a bit. Now, insurance can be a little blah, but we have a great team that there's a lot of information that we're going to give, and we have some wonderful experts on the panel, right? Some wonderful experts. So I need your energy, and I need you guys to definitely make this as exciting as possible. So if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat. We will definitely answer it, because I bet you 9 times out of 10, if it's a question for you, it's probably somebody else that has the same question. Sounds good?
Sounds great.
Perfect.
Let's go.
All right, let's keep going. Okay, wonderful. So the first question that I'm going to have is to Miss Angela White, who has already been stated that she has been a advocate and really boots on the ground as far as getting people involved into social equity and getting them into the industry and a host of other things. So I have a question for you. In your opinion, my first question is, in your opinion, would you please, for everyone, define what a social equity awardee is? There may be some that don't know what that term means. And then also, in your opinion, what are the advantages and disadvantages of being a social equity awardee?
Okay. So I was going to start out by giving the definition of equity according to San Francisco's ordinance, but I decided to come with a different approach. So social equity are folks who, in spite of the odds against them, have been able to leap over the barriers that have kept them out of industries. They are warriors who refuse to roll over and quit. These are folks that have achieved their dreams, some of which who have made something out of nothing to begin with, except for an opportunity to receive a permit. And there are many others who will follow in their footsteps. These are folks who have studied all aspects of the industry and used resources provided by a team of mentors who have worked for free, like Summer Jenkins and Jesse Parenti, Kevin Holler, to name a few, to get them over goalposts that keep moving as they get closer. What they have endured. Social equity applicants are champions. Okay, that's who they are. You're muted again, Simone.
Now, understanding that social equity clients are that they're warriors, but what have you seen has been the advantages of possibly being a social equity awardee?
The advantages are, I would say, having a state that has made it possible for them to receive funding. Because like I said, often people start with nothing. And you have folks who have to go out and get a location, which being able to negotiate a terms lease without even knowing if they're going to be able to afford that spot for maybe up to 5 years, because I've had folks in the industry who have paid rent that long and are just now launching. So there are some advantages and some disadvantages. But like I said, these folks have endured.
They have endured. I love that. I love that. Which that totally sends us right over to our next question. So, Nichelle, what do you think are the unique coverages for social equity? I know social equity is a big thing for you and your organization. So let's talk about what unique coverages are needed for social equity awardees. Go ahead.
That's a great question, Simone, and thanks for having me. This is a critically important conversation at a critically important time of historic proportions to transform society from mass incarceration to legalization and now commercialization, with the cannabis plant at the root of it all. We cannot right the unjust wrongs of the past. However, we can look to the future, inclusive of legacy operators women and diversely owned by Black and Brown people, with new cannapreneurs from communities most destroyed by epic proportions of the failed war on drugs. Projected revenue of $50 billion by 2027, stimulating economic growth and workforce development. This heavily regulated cannabis industry has inherent risks that must be properly insured, and operators must maintain compliance and mitigate risks. So depending on the sector of business, whether a grower, manufacturer, retail, transportation, and other ancillary businesses, the needs of coverage will vary, such as property and coverage to protect the dwelling and a highly valued commodity, your product, layered with equipment insurance, business interruption coverage, theft and crop protection for growers, general liability to protect personal injury and property damage, product liability for product recall and to protect adverse reactions to products or allegations of such, workers' compensation, and cyber liability. So distribution and delivery services will require fleet auto coverage with tracking devices, as well as professional liability, directors and officers, and employment practices liability. The workforce will need employee health benefits to attract and retain workers in a competitive environment. So insurance protects businesses from financial failure. Risk management helps to limit the frequency and severity of such losses. In addition, the insurance carrier has the duty to defend, meaning they'll provide legal defense in the event of a loss or allegation. It's our job to educate businesses so that one bad day doesn't put you out of business. That's my overview and shortened version of insurance, Simone.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate this. So wonderful, great definition, great answer, which is going to lead me right next to my next person, which is Matt, who actually chairs with me in the risk management committee that we're in. Now, Matt and I have been knowing each other for years. And one thing that I love about Matt has seen all of the supply chain for insurance. So he's been, from underwriter to broker to everything in between. So this is going to be a great question for you. What have you seen working and not working as far as insurance and coverage is going with social equity awardees or social equity programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're looking at all the coverages that Nichelle just outlined there. You've really got to protect your business from every angle. So I think the number one most important thing to have there is attention to detail. You want to make sure that every building you've got is covered. You want to make sure you know all of the equipment and machinery you have inside that building. And if possible, take some steps to manage that risk and safeguard it before you even get the insurance in place. Up next, you got to find a good insurance broker, and you got to treat them like your attorney, right? They're your advocate, honest with them, and they'll go out and tell the best version of your story to the carriers out there and get you the best possible quotes for your business. I think another good piece of advice there, as you start down that journey, is to be ready for delays. I'm sure Antoine can speak to just what a awful experience it can be going through that licensing process, banging your head against the wall, waiting for legislation to move, waiting for committees to meet, waiting for this and that and the other thing, when it seems like the only idea on your mind is when can I finally get rolling? When can I put this plan into action? Finally, I'd say, it's huge to find good partners. That's probably the best thing you can do while starting a cannabis business, is make sure you're in with the right people. Find a good network through the NCIA or local folks in your area. Start asking for referrals and see who really knows their stuff before you get involved with them. I think if you do all of those things, you'll have a better footing than 90% of the competition out there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was amazing. So that totally brings us back over to our next panelist, who is Mr. Antoine. And so one of the things that I want to say is not only I have watched this young man and his family really, really pursue their licensing, which has been a wonderful champion story, but I also get a chance to be a part of the dream. He is one of my clients. So Antoine, I have to say, I mean, outside of being with me, that's fabulous. But outside of that, when you started this journey of actually getting your license, I'm sure you had something in the back of your head that was like, okay, this is what the experience is going to be like. This is about how much it costs. To walk me through the briefly as we talk about your licensing story, which is, you know, really shortly, I'll just give them a little bit, but then also go in and talk about what you've experienced and how much you've learned in this experience of what it requires to, as a cultivator, to obtain insurance.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today, and to be able to give you all a unique perspective of as a kind of entrepreneur as I was developing to be able to enter the industry here in Alabama. So the first thing that I would say that's most important to any potential operator: know your rules and regulations better than anybody else. Spend time in those rules and regulations so you know exactly what the requirement is. So when you do have conversations with, you know, potential attorneys and brokers and things like that, you will know exactly what it is that you need to be provided so that you can be operational, you know, within your business, as well as you continue to develop and expand your network. It's going to be, I say it's very important that you connect and build sustainable relationships with knowledgeable individuals in the space and industry. So as we was kind of preparing, you know, for Alabama, I've been kind of tethered in the industry for a couple of years now. So I had a lot of insight and wisdom from the amazing panel that you see here yourself to be able to put me in a better position so that once the applications actually came out, I had a lot of stuff already in place to make sure that we able to be a good solid candidate to be actually awarded a license. Now, my experience, Alabama, you know, they kind of got some unique acts. They want us to protect it from everything. You know, we have to have like a $2 million general liability insurance. We got to have protection from just an active guy, you know, storm, tornadoes, rain, fire, flood, whatever the case may be. As well, we have to make sure we have workers' comp. You need to make sure, and this, you will learn all this from your rules and regulations, because your rules and regulations will clearly define what it is that you need, and just kind of getting everything in place. So before we got to that part, you know, I developed my network on who it is that I want to potentially partner with, and building those credible individuals to be able to prepare me for it. So the experience was extremely well. The knowledge and wisdom that was shared with me throughout my peers within the network would take you a long way versus trying to get into the space. And a lot of folks kind of put insurance on the back burner, but best believe it's going to be on that front burner once you start running into issues.
That is awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad that, I mean, and I think as we go on, one of the things that I'll say about my experience with you and your team, it was that they wanted to check all of the boxes, right? They wanted to make sure that everything was covered. It was never a situation of let's skip a step. And I think that that's very, very telling, you know, especially when we talk about a lot of social equity awardees or social equity programs, because there are oftentimes some limits and some disadvantages, and capital is usually one of them. It's a lot of times we're not always prepared to say, okay, we're going to put the insurance first, right? That's the last thing that you want to pay, right? Nobody wants insurance until they need it. So kudos to your team of just saying, hey, no, we're not skipping any steps. We're doing that. And that made it a joy to work with you. All right, so our next question as we go on, and we're talking about this, right? So this segues us right into our next question. So understanding the disadvantages and the advantages, and Miss Angela, you even spoke about, you know, specifically in your area, but I believe Michelle even talked about, you know, the different states, and of course, our real life experience from Antoine. But in your opinion, Ms. Angela, and you've seen it, and this could be your micro in your area, whatever. Do you feel like the social equity programs are working? Are they growing, or are they getting worse? Because we're also hearing less and less about them.
It's funny that you said that, because on my drive in this morning, There was a commercial that came on by some cannabis industry lawyers, and one of the words that they used was social. They referred to social equity as gatekeepers. Um, I want to help to change that narrative because that's not what they are. Luckily, states have been recognizing that these folks have been over incarcerated, as Nichelle spoke on earlier. And um, the narrative that has been painted about them being a handout and things of that nature, when you look at the data of who has been over incarcerated the most in this industry, they are very much folks who look like me. And so, with that said, I don't see the industry or the programs declining. I see them as very much a need that needs to continue on. And because of these false narratives that have been placed on our people that have done absolutely nothing but been victims of a war on drugs, we want to make sure that they continue to strive in this industry. And that is my opinion, and I'm going to stand on that. I approve this message.
Well, you know what? Listen, girlfriend, I agree with you. I got one thing though, I'm gonna double back and ask you, right? So in your opinion, in a perfect world, right? Can you give me maybe one or two things that you would like to see implemented in social equity programs? Because let me tell you something about Miss Simone Cason. I like solutions, right? I like to be able to give people. And so even in these next questions that I'm going to ask the rest of the panels, I'm going to ask them if they would, in an ideal world, right? So in an ideal world, this is Miss Angela's world. She's controlling everything. What one or two things would you like to see implemented that you think would be better, make the programs better?
One of the things is, equity was an afterthought, which it should not have ever been. So going forward, I would like to see equity at the forefront of these decisions being made statewide. Here in California, we had to come back and fight for equity to exist. And so, as the social equity programs move across the nation, and the states are legalizing and wanting to, be inclusive of all people, that would be one thing that I would say is that you need to really put equity first. And those who are against that kind of language, consider the fact that the playing fields are being leveled. And so you should encourage competition in some sense from folks who have definitely had their communities destroyed and affected deeply by the failed war on drugs. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. It did. It definitely did. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. And it tees us up right to our next one. So, Nichelle, so you got a chance to give us a lot of information on the different coverages that are actually needed, right? And the advantages and the disadvantages or whatever. But what I would love to hear from you, as we tapped upon, there's definitely going to be requirements for insurance that are state requirement, right? So as Antoine alluded to, there are things that the state is going to require you to have coverage for just so that you can be able to obtain your license. But then there's also going to be coverages that are going to be needed to meet your business model. So, which pretty much is how you do business, how you operate, how exposed you are to risk. So Nichelle, can you share with everyone what's the difference between the state requirements and the requirements of somebody's actual operation?
Yeah, that's another great question, Simone. There can be quite a difference in what the state requires and what your business needs are to protect your business. There are many complexities with each state standing up its own set of cannabis regulations, and it's no different when it comes to insurance. Each state that has legalized cannabis does have varying insurance requirements. To add further complications, there are often additional layers of insurance requirements at a local or municipal level. And finally, there can be requirements, mandatory of a property landlord or investor. For example, let's talk about my state, New Jersey, where the Cannabis Regulatory Commission requires only general liability for operators. However, the state of New Jersey also requires workers' compensation if you own and operate any type of business. Some municipalities may require full commercial business insurance with property, general liability, workers' comp, and perhaps product liability, while other municipalities have no additional requirements. So for those operators leasing property, the landlord may require specific types of coverage, such as property for replacement costs of the dwelling and or general liability with specific limits of liability that Antoine alluded to with his landlord. Investors may want to see the full suite of commercial business insurance in addition to directors and officers and employment practices liability to protect their investment. So D&O protects any actual or alleged error, breach of duty by directors or officers while acting in their individual or collective capacities, or any matter claimed against them solely by reason of being a director or officer of that company. And then employment practices, we see a lot of claims for this now, helps protect your business from employment-related claims like wrongful termination, discrimination, harassment. Just remember that we're building this workforce. You're training new employees. So make sure your employee handbooks are on point. It's part of your SOPs. So those types of coverage are very important. Investors may also want to see buy-sell agreements for key person, life and disability insurance, which is a form of insurance and agreement providing financial benefits to the business entity in the event of a death or disability of partners or key employees of the business. So if you're an operator in a state with low or no level requirements, like Oklahoma, it's very much your responsibility to make smart decisions to protect the assets of the business, property, people, and product. It's the cost of doing business. Just always remember, you don't want one misstep to put you out of business, closing business doors forever. You've worked much too hard, and fines, violations are happening to MSOs, the multi-state operators, and they can happen to smaller businesses just as well.
All right, thank you so much, Nichelle. We really appreciate that. Really clear and concise. Let everybody know what kind of coverage they're going to need and what they're looking for. And one of the things that I'm so glad that you tapped on, because it segues us into our next conversation, is you talked about investors. And so one of the key things that we all know, I think, well, everybody in business always needs capital, right? And so a lot of times when people start new businesses, they are undercapitalized, right? One of the biggest issues in many businesses closing is because they don't ask for enough money. In addition to that, we're in a space right now where you can get contact with investors, hedge funds, you can be lendable, fundable, all of these different ways. And so one of the big things that I believe is a disadvantage or is kind of pushed over outside of insurance, right? Because insurance is actually going to be mandatory. But when you're looking to be able to fund this business, what all of the financial requirements? So Matt, I'm going to send it over to you. So what other financial requirements outside of insurance do you think social equity awardees should be aware of so that they can stay sustainable?
Yeah, great question. Thanks. Well, there's just a ton to watch out for there. I think first and foremost is really look carefully at your banking partners. Um, this is probably the only industry I've known where you can put $100,000 into an account with the bank and they will charge you interest to hold on to it. They'll charge you fees. It's not logical in a lot of ways, but the banks account for having to file suspicious activity reports, having the increased regulatory burden on them, and it ends up putting the cannabis operators at a disadvantage. So whenever possible, look for a local community bank, someone that understands the business, wants to support it. Credit unions have done a good job at stepping up and filling in where a Bank of America or a USAA just isn't going to play in this space, right? So find good partners on the finance side. While you're talking about bank accounts too, you mentioned ownership there as well. Definitely look into equity and debt deals with an extra degree of scrutiny. Too many times you hear about social equity awardees having 51% of their business snaked away because they didn't read that equity agreement closely enough. They missed some key provision and effectively sacrificed control of the company to someone who really shouldn't be doing anything more than collecting interest payments. So watch out for the people who bankroll the company as well. And look into those vendor agreements. There's a lot of folks getting burnt right now on net 30, net 60 payment terms. There's a lot of push to do that, cash on demand, or sorry, cash on delivery payment methods so that people are actually getting paid on time. Kind of creates problems throughout the whole supply chain if one part of it doesn't pay their fair dues. Finally, I know Antoine alluded to this, live in those regulations, really read them front to back, know your state requirements. Alabama had man, it was a hefty set. You've lived in those for a while because that was not a short list of rules. Michigan's got their own slew of stuff. Simone, I know you could talk about attestations all day. Nichelle up in Jersey, you got a whole laundry list of stuff up there. Angela, I'm sure out in California too, you guys have been dealing with the regulations for over a decade. So just knowing what is specific to your state, having a good lawyer or a good consultant, if you're going to branch out across multiple states, you want someone who really understands what it's like to operate on the ground in that area. And that's so invaluable. But pay attention to those areas and you'll be a bit better equipped to move on and keep growing.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you so much for that answer and giving us that information. I think that was really great. And so, of course, it brings us right on over to Antoine. So, Antoine, one thing that I really, have thought was really cool about you and your team is, as you said, you really started to build this team out, right? And so there's always questions, that you can tell that you're getting expert advice on this and really rocking at a high level. What did you and your team discuss as far as the additional insurance requirements that you needed? And then also, I would love to go back and for you to speak on your experience on getting educated on just your process or whatever. So what did you guys what were the unique coverages that you needed specifically to your operation? And then how did you get all of this education, not just on the insurance portion, but just structuring your business so that you can be financially solid?
Gotcha. So when it came down to Alabama, and then my team just kind of preparing, for the industry, and we just started to run through hypothetical situations. So, we were just having a conversation like, well, what if we have, a tree fall on the power line? 'Cause that's very common in our area. You have a tree fall on the power line, and let's say we don't have generators and everything in place as of yet. How can we protect our product, knowing that without any power, we can't produce anything? And then if you go more than a couple hours without, providing them plants with the lights and nutrients that they need, or 24 hours, it's catastrophic. You might as well just count it all as a loss. But just to be able to better prepare for those opportunities, we started to have those conversations like, well, how can we protect ourselves? So then I just started asking those questions like, well, what kind of insurance that we need for this? And then on top of that, Alabama's been very unique. I wouldn't say very unique, because I think every state has dealt with this on how they decided to roll out the licenses. So as it stands as of right now, Alabama, not all the licenses have been issued. So we don't have a complete full supply chain as of yet. As it stands as of today, our dispensary licenses are currently being held up due to challenges. And myself as a cultivator, the state of Alabama required for us to start cultivating within 60 days of being issued our license. I now currently have 18 days left to become operational. So I have to start growing by March 1st. So now at that point, I'm wide open. I'm moving forward. I don't care what the state got going on. I don't care what the dispensaries got going on. I don't care what nobody has going on. I have a product that's growing that's going to need to be sold. And if we run into any issues down the line, let's say we get everything processed, but we don't have a dispensary for it to go to, like, how can we protect ourselves from just kind of sitting on product and as the business just really being interrupted? And that's when we started to ask more questions like, well, how can we protect ourselves against certain unfortunate situations? So once I started asking those questions, that's when I started to become more educated in the space, especially as anybody that's on this call that's a potential cannabis entrepreneur. Seek mentorship. Because your mentors that's already in the space, that has already went through certain things, they have certain experience and wisdom and knowledge that they can be able to share with you to better prepare you for your opportunity in your respectable states. And that's what's one of the biggest assistance with me kind of preparing for a lot of things here in the state of Alabama. So we end up having to ask for unique coverages, such as I think it's like crop insurance, business interruption insurance, and it's one more that I'm missing, but it ain't coming to me right now. But those are unique actions that we had to make sure that we protect ourselves, at least make sure we have the coverage just in case, because as of right now, also, I'm a unique individual as well here in the state, in which I had to learn about the rules and regulations because I compiled my application myself. But just when those situations kind of happen, it's all about protection. It's all about protection. And at the end of the day, I'm a self-funded individual. So if my company goes belly up, I'm belly up. And my family ain't gonna look. That's not a good look. So as we continue to execute the play, you must make sure that you're covered in all aspects. So that's why it's important to connect with solid individuals in the space, professionals, individuals in the space, as well as mentorship. You can't do this alone. As one of the podcasts I go, nobody can grow the green alone. It takes a team and a community to be able to build a sustainable industry and relationship so that we can continue to grow and develop. So yeah, I say that a lot. Yeah, I can hear you.
For some reason, you went out for me, but as long as everybody can hear me, but that was definitely great. Everybody can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much. So wonderful. So great information, everyone. Brian, would you do me a favor? Can we go into the chat, into the Q&A really quickly? I think we had some good questions that were out there.
Of course, you missed the mic drop moment of the webinar so far, Simone. Antoine knocked it out of the park there. That's the best way we could transition into Q&A. Perfect. Yeah, we've got a great question. Yeah, we've got a great question from Angelita Green in particular. I know that if you have dropped a question into the chat room and it's not here on the Q&A board, feel free to either repost it in the chat room or get it transferred to the Q&A board. If you are amongst the audience members, as you see Q&A come in, feel free to upvote questions, and that'll let the panel know in particular that we want to go there next. So we got a great question from Angelita Green that I think we've touched on a little bit, and I think Antoine just touched on it now, but I think this will be a great way to expand on it. Angelita just asked, do you see cultivators getting crop insurance, or are insurance covered, or are insurance companies offering that to cannabis cultivators? So Antoine, definitely have a perspective there, but if any of the insurance providers, Nichelle, wanted to jump in and cover that as well, I think that'd be a great response.
Yeah, absolutely. Crop insurance is exclusive to growers. Your carriers are more inclined for indoor growth compared to outdoor because there's obviously more environmental controls. And Antoine did expand on the need for backup generators, strong lighting vendor partners, your nutrients, pesticides. You want to use organic, which goes to quality control with testing of heavy metals and all of the outside components that come into proper cultivation. So definitely talk to your insurance broker about acquiring cultivation insurance, crop coverage.
Might be worth too mentioning, you've got the kind of standard crop insurance, which is good for the indoor grows. Absolutely. There's some folks who try to offering parametric insurance for outdoor greenhouse grows. It's a bit trickier to do, but common in some other ag spaces. That insurance isn't triggered the same way. So your standard crop insurance is going to be triggered if there's a fire or someone comes in and steals it, right?
Right.
The parametric insurance is going to be triggered if a certain condition is met, usually with regards to temperature or weather. So it might be
acts of God and things like that. I was going to make sure that they know that. And then last but not least, there's going to be you can get indoor, you can get outdoor, and you can get greenhouse. And then there's also a coverage called finished stock. Right. So that's going to cover when something arises, there's a theft or whatever, after it's already been produced and you kind of got it in your vault and you got it wherever in your cage or whatnot. So there are different insurances. In most cases, if your state is requiring for you to have that, they already know it can be done, right? So we had a bunch of different things that I thought was crazy from Alabama, but Alabama has a lot of acts of God that go on. So whatever that carrier writes in that state, they know that they have to be implemented when they do it. You know what I mean? So that's the thing, Matt, is that if ABC carrier is writing in Ohio, I'm just using that, they know what is going to be needed and vice versa to be able to obtain that, right? So it's going to vary from state to state. But thanks for everybody. That was really good. B, what's the next question?
Yeah, no, we got a great question that just came in. And this revolves around when you should be looking to secure your insurance before or after the licensing process. So from Marietta Dent, we got, did you find your insurance provider before receiving a license, or should it be done after receiving a license? I think Antoine would have a great perspective on that. And then Simone and Nichelle, feel free to jump in as well.
Okay, go ahead, Antoine.
Always start early. You do not want to be behind the ball when it's time for the shot to go in. So develop your relationships early with your broker to say what exact carrier. Did I have a selected carrier? No, but I had a relationship with my broker. I already let her know what it is that I need. However, Alabama was a unique state. I had to already show that I had that relationship and at least show what my potential coverage was going to be, because I had to provide and show that for my application. Like Alabama, they wanted to know everything. They want to know all the information. They wanted engineer plans. They even wanted user manuals for the actual equipment that you was going to use in your grow facility, let alone knowing dang well these commissioners don't know nothing about any of this equipment and growing, but you have to be able to provide this. So yeah, definitely start early. Start early. Just get the conversations and everything going so you can better prepare yourself and at least have a good fundamental direction on what's going to be expected of you when that time do come. Because some folks, they expect like, well, the insurance may not, don't expect for the insurance to be so much. And then when you start getting all these different policies and premiums and things like that, then you look at it like, dang, I wasn't expecting for it to be that much. So it's good to go ahead and start having those conversations early so you can better prepare yourself, as well as start generating a budget to be able to satisfy that premium.
Awesome. I tell you, if Antoine wasn't in cultivation, I'd hire him as a broker. He knows his stuff. CANNRA coverage, we had to provide over, my team is on, thanks guys for being on, but we had to provide over 800 letters of intent to the New Jersey CRC, Cannabis Regulatory Commission, and the New York Office of Cannabis Management, so that operators could show that they understand the need of insurance and that they have this strategy. So we engage with our prospects very early in the game, again, to educate, and so they start to create that budget. So insurance is the cost of doing business to protect your assets, protect your people, protect your product.
And then I'll just state, so that's going to vary from state to state, right? So in actual license to license, I'll give you an example. For in some states, if they were to do a certain event or whatever, then that insurance policy has to be in inception within 90 prior to 90 days of that event happening. And you may see that, but now you may be in another one where you're getting a general liability, right? And so they're asking for what the state may say 60 days or what have you, but in most cases, those quotes are only good for 30 days. So I'm going to give you a practical approach, right? So the practical approach is one, definitely you want to be able to start having those conversations early, building those relationships. The next thing is that you may be in a state that requires for your, and especially if it's a two-step process, then they may be asking for a letter of intent, right? And usually that will last for like about 1 year or whatever while you're finishing your process. In that, you want to go ahead and start to obtain and actually bind and wrap up your insurance probably about 30 days before your opening. So you should be getting that application in at a minimum of 60 days, making sure that your broker has all of the requirements for the state and everything that you're actually looking to obtain. After that, you may have some states that are or loans or grant opportunities or whatever initiative that may be saying upon us achieving this or receiving this money, you're going to have a certain amount of coverage. Then at that point, you're going to have to go by whatever guidelines there are. So of course, the state requirements, the business requirements, and then there may be some issues that are requiring for you to get insurance because of your funding.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
All
Yeah,
right.
thank you for breaking that down so easy for all the
Yeah.
audience members to understand. We still got a few minutes left in the session, so
Cool.
we don't want to start winding down if there are audience members that want to contribute to the conversation. So feel free to get those questions posted into either the chat room or to the Q&A board. While we're waiting for those to come in, I think Simone's got a few questions in her back pocket that can help continue the conversation. So I'll turn it back over to Simone.
I always got questions. I always got questions. Y'all know, look, I always got questions. All right, so Angela, and then I'll shoot one over to Nichelle. Angela, we talked about some before. This was y'all. So sometimes we have like really cool conversations in the practice, and y'all ain't privy to them. So I'm gonna let you in a little bit. So Angela, you talked to me before when we did our practice. You made mention of some things that you saw in your municipality and in your program that you really thought some changes could be made. And I think one of them was in reference to one of them was in the reference to being awardees being taken advantage of. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah. So as Antoine had mentioned, there's a lot of people that come into the industry that call themselves experts. My words for verified equity here in San Francisco is always do your due diligence. Investigate who is coming to your table to try to sell you on something. We have one of 10 licenses in the state of California under our belt. He's a cultivator, outdoor cultivator up in Calaveras County, Jamai. And he was approached by some experts who, first of all, that were helping him put together his license and had his license listed as an indoor grow. And so we sent up a gentleman named Lance who knew compliance for the state, who works as a mentor to help him correct the paperwork. But he had already spent a lot of money with these fake people. So I don't know if insurance has something that you can get refunded on what you spent out to bogus experts. So that is definitely something you need to look out for. And
insurance, you know what? Unfortunately, insurance does not cover stupid.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you've never done some of this work before, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're stupid. I'm just going to say, for some of the verified equity, you're believing and trusting people. And so, especially with someone who's calling themselves an attorney. So this is what I'm saying, like, how do you vet those things out and to be safe? But anyway, luckily, we had a resource for him. And like I said, after he got everything straightened out with his license, he became like one of 10 organically grown, certified here in the state of California, Black-owned operator. And so I'm very proud to say that, because he was able to turn things around, and he is now up and running in business. And so this is why I say, change the narrative about who these people are, because like I said, champions, warriors, don't roll over and quit, because many people probably would have just been done at that time. And the other thing I want to say is, because these are equity operators and their wealth is spared, first of all, one mistake can shut your doors forever. And so with that being said, you know, we really have to do our due diligence. And
let me say this to you, Miss Angela. The easiest person in the world to trick is somebody who wants something for nothing. Everybody needs to understand we are in the legalized dope game. Okay, regardless of how we can be as passionate as we want to be. And this is why this program is so important, because we have to teach each other and adapt the narrative of not skipping steps. That's why Antoine Mordecai is such an important guest on here, because he did not skip steps. Anytime you're listening to somebody and they're giving you professional advice and they start the sentence with all you got to do, you need to pack up and run. And this leads me over to my question to Matt, because Matt talked a lot about being taken advantage of, and us and individuals getting in contracts where these are pretty much 360 deals where they're giving up 50% of their company. And although it may not be stupid, it could be a level of ignorance. But we have to understand that social equity is a certificate and a discount in most cases. It is not a license to sell free weed and not do all of the things that you need to do to be a sustainable business. Can we agree upon that? Right? So,
Absolutely.
So I'm going to let Matt go in, because we see a lot of disadvantages and a lot of snake oil people. And a lot of times, a lot of us would like to go towards the shiny thing. The easiest person in the world to trick is somebody who wants something for nothing. Go ahead, Matt.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, that's something you really got to watch out for. Wearing a pin for my favorite social equity group up in Massachusetts, a group called Trade Roots. One of their founders has a really, crazy story about getting busted in the legacy market with a trunk full of cash and just pounds.
Right.
And ultimately it ended up being a leg up in the licensing process there. Massachusetts was one of the few states that actually kind of honored their social equity deal. But before Trade Roots got around, I believe the story goes that he was effectively taken advantage of for that social equity qualification by another group, who then kind of tossed them to the wayside the moment they were done with them. So just gotta make sure that you're picking the right partners, share the same long-term vision, and that you're there with people, like you're saying, who aren't going to skip steps. People
and
are
it's
there.
still a business. That is the thing that I really wish that we would really convey and speak loudly about. It is still a business. Come what may, you are still in a legalized drug game, and we are after. And this is the thing. It's almost like putting a hot dog stand next to a major McDonald's. You got to work harder. Unfortunately, being a social equity awardee means that you have to work harder to get to where the other ones are getting to immediately.
That's right. Yeah. And folks have to understand, if claims, violations, and fines can happen to large MSOs, multi-state operators, it can happen to small businesses. And I have one case study I'd like to share, where an MSO had a problem with a partner supplier that mislabeled a THC product as a CBD product. So that claim arose out of a manufacturing issue. 13 claims were filed having adverse reaction. There was one wrongful death, and the allegation that the decedent had a reaction to the THC and actually died 2 months later. So there was a bit of a hurdle with the medical causation tying it back to the THC, but it was the THC that served as a catalyst that led to that decedent falling into a coma and succumbing to those conditions. So having those SOPs together, having your risk management program down, and then having insurance for protection of financial failure. So if it can happen to a large company, it can certainly happen to a smaller operation. So whether you're social equity or you're a multi-state operator, compliance, risk management, insurance is what's needed.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in a little more about, those folks that's, as I call it, it's a very predatory industry, especially when it comes down to social equity. It's sharks out here, and if you're out here bleeding, they smell it and they feed on you. So the best thing, like I can just directly share my experience because that devil has visited my door a few times, especially with the emergency market here in Alabama. You will have a lot of folks from out of the state that'll come in like, man, it's all you gotta do is XYZ to go ahead and get everything together. They'll help you write your application while charging you a fee of a crazy cost to be able to write the application for you as well. They want percentage equity in the business if once the license is obtained. And then you run into those that just want to be predatory investors, hoping to be able to get a little bit of piece of something with, hidden motives behind the fact. And then you'll just run into those that may just be want to recruit you just so they can be able to use your likability to be able to get the license here in the state of Alabama. My bad, in any state. But I was very firm on what it is that I wanted to do in my state, and everything that everybody was pitching and presenting to me just did not serve my purpose. And that's why I say it's very important for every operator to know the rules and regulations like the back of their hand. Can't nobody come into the state of Alabama and tell me about the Alabama program because I've been there. I'm in the commission meetings. I actually was part of the program before we even got the law. And when the rules and regulations went out, I offered comments on certain things that was in the rules and regulations that I just had questions about. So when you get some of these quote unquote consultants saying that they can be able to do X, Y, Z and help your business and everything get stood up when they really just trying to drain your pockets. They really trying to drain your pockets. And then saying that they can be able to offer different assets, real estate, or they got a perfect building for you to be able to, they just want to be a part of the application. I happen to be a unique individual in that space. I started preparing for this opportunity 10 years ago. The land that I'll be growing on, I own. The buildings that I'll be growing in, I own. I want to make sure that I didn't put myself in a position where somebody can be able to control me on what it is that I aspire to do in my great state, especially with the emerging industry that we kind of got coming here in Alabama. So I'd like to go ahead and just go into answering the question in the Q&A. It said, any advice on how to find trusted advisors with experience and good intentions? Connect yourself with good people. Go to these conventions. Visit these organizations. Talk with people. Network. Develop. Go to mixers, have calls, conversations, follow-up calls. You don't have to pick anybody off of one conversation. A lot of the relationships that I'm using today has been cultivated in the past 2 to 3 years. When I was out here speaking about cannabis in Alabama, nobody was believing that cannabis was coming to Alabama. However, it was individual. They were like, man, you're a strong candidate. You're a strong individual, and I see your passion. We want to be able to see you win. So any question that I had reliable individuals that I can be able to call. So make sure you just kind of tether and connecting yourself with the proper people so that you can be able to continue to grow and develop. But most importantly, get involved. Get in the mix. Don't think you're going to get in this game and make a buku amount of money because it ain't going to happen. You're going to get robbed. You're going to get robbed. So make sure that you're better prepared and secure yourself in everything it is that you're trying to do so you're not in a position where you're taken advantage of or you find yourself in a desperate position where you have to sign a deal with the devil.
I totally
agree.
I
would say, ask for references. Ask for references of folks that they've worked with. I know sometimes asking for references, they'll give you the best of the best, but really, really vet these people. That's what I'm saying. Like, just, and Antoine, you are one of those champions that I am just so very proud because you know to study the ordinances and understand what's happening. And that's something that we are we tell people here in San Francisco, is that book of ordinances are that's your Bible, and you need to know it. So when you're going to deal with folks, you know, when they're going down the wrong path, and you can correct them, and that lets them know, oh, I have one of those. And so you are one of those, and I'm very proud to know you
Thank you. Thank
and
you.
continue on. Wish
And
you all success.
Awesome.
I'll say
We're
this,
gonna,
just know enough so you can
because
be
we're gonna be
involved.
wrapping up. We're wrapping up. Go
Okay.
ahead, Antoine.
I just
No,
want to
go
say
ahead,
for
real
everybody,
quick.
just study and know enough. So when you're having a conversation with somebody, you can ask certain kind of question that if they don't answer it properly, you know it's absolute BS.
Mhm.
Ignorance of the law is not a defense, right? Let's take that. So I think our biggest takeaways from this is making sure that when we talk about social equity and we talk about social equity awardees, what we really want to make sure is in this whole spiel, making sure that we're defining what equity is, which means ownership, right? And so if you are owning something, it is very, very important for us to be able to sustain and be able to have sustainability with our companies. And it's not a grand opening and grand closing, not getting into deals that are not going to be advantageous to us, creating a committee and a partnership and relationships with individuals that and entities that we trust, making sure that you go back and do a background check on them. And then last but not least, educate. Because you are a social equity awardee, you may have some unique risk management needs. Please connect with someone that is on this panel so that you can be able to ask questions, get some information. I have so enjoyed myself. So before I turn it over to Brian, I want to tell everybody on the panel, thank you so much for your time, right? Thank you so much to all of the audience that decided to tune in. I believe that they will have a replay and he'll give you all of that.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Simone, for assembling this absolutely phenomenal lineup of speakers, operators, social equity champions. Special thanks to Angela for joining us from San Francisco, from the Success Centers, to provide your really unique perspective on the ground in one of the most established markets. And Antoine, thank you for setting such an amazing example. I really can't think of another example of an operator that's so in tune with not only the market itself, but you helped shepherd it to actually culminating, and to hear how well positioned you are, I think really ties together with this positioning for prosperity topic here today. So I really thank you so much for diving into so much of your story and sharing your background. Thank you, Matthew and Michelle in particular as well, for your very unique perspectives and for joining us from the Risk Management and Insurance Committee in particular. While we've got everybody's attention, we'll leave today with just a quick preview of some upcoming activities that NCIA is engaging in that we'd love all of your all's participation in. As Antoine was mentioning, we do have a number of opportunities to get educated and get connected with our vast nationwide network of cannabis business operators. We're going to be bringing a new event series called NCIA Stakeholder Summits to our most established and two of our hottest emerging markets over the next few months. Next Thursday, we'll be kicking this event series off in Sacramento with the director of the Department of Cannabis Control sitting alongside Congresswoman Barbara Lee on a federal policy panel, and then a regional policy panel that's specifically focusing on pending legislation surrounding hemp and derived and novel cannabinoids in the California marketplace. So really fantastic program. We've got a number of sponsors that are going to be setting up and talking more about their businesses and services at each of these events, and we'd love all of your all's participation. In particular, that California Stakeholder Summit event that I did mention is being sponsored by a therapeutic alternative. Their location is right next to the Sophia Theater that we're going to be hosting the event at. So if you have any questions about participating in that event or when the best time to secure your tickets are, prices will increase the day of the event. So make sure to go into NCIA's website and secure your spot over the next few days. And then for all of you all that don't have this on your calendar, as NCIA members or just general members of the industry at large, we would love all of your all's participation with our 12th annual Cannabis Industry Lobby Days. It's your hands-on experience to contribute to our federal advocacy efforts alongside hundreds of other cannabis business operators. It's our most important advocacy focused event of the year. We already have 30 plus member businesses signed on as sponsors. And we're currently in the second round of early bird ticket prices available just for members. So if you do have any questions about this event series, feel free to reach out to myself or any NCIA staff member following today's call. And we hope to see you in DC joining us in Congress to make sure that rescheduling and descheduling occur this year. And then last but not least, appreciate the responses to that intro poll. It looked like we were about half and half members and non-members. So really appreciate the commitment from our current members and all of you non-members for joining us to learn more about NCIA membership and the activities that we're doing. We do host monthly member orientation sessions. So if you do want to learn how to maximize your membership and ensure you're getting all of the benefits offered underneath of your membership, please do get to NCIA's website, sign up today and secure your spot. And if you are a social equity awardee or licensee holder, do head to our website to learn more about our social equity scholarship program that can provide your business complimentary membership for 1 calendar year and then a heavily discounted up to 90% off your second calendar year to ensure that NCIA membership and access to our network is something that you can receive along with being a social equity awardee or license holder. All right. Thank you all so much. That's the conclusion of today's Industry Essentials webinar, Positioning for Prosperity, Insurance Essentials for Social Equity Awardees. We're going to leave you today with this short movie that highlights all of the sponsoring member businesses of our upcoming event series and all of the member businesses that joined us today. Our speakers are going to leave the virtual stage, but they'll stick around here in the chat room for just a few minutes as well. If you have any last minute questions or wanted to get some contact information so you can follow up and learn more about how they can contribute to the success of your business and position your business for prosperity in this ever evolving landscape, please do. And we look forward to seeing you again for a future session. Thank you again for your participation today. Until next time, take care and stay tuned for more valuable insights from NCIA's Industry Essentials webinar series soon. Thank you so much.